Shua Tov Mevarach. Mishnah Yomi is continuing in the 10th chapter of Eiruvin at Mishnah 10. We're at Yud and the Yud, so it should be very good mazel today. Yesterday we were talking about locking doors, and now we're continuing about doors. There's an issue with bolting the door where it could be bone, building on Shabbat, or an appearance of building, which could be forbidden derabanan, rabbinically. Neger, a bolt, a door bolt that you use to lock the door, keep it shut. Sheyesh barosho glustra, has a knob on one end. Rabbi Eliezer Oser. Rabbi Eliezer says you cannot use it to keep the door shut. You jam it into the door jamb or into the hole in the floor, whatever it is used to keep the door shut. So he says you cannot use it. Now this is because it looks like bona. It resembles the malacha of building. And the Gemara explains that if it's not attached to the door, Eliezer says it's always usher because it resembles building. We might have seen sometimes there are double doors where there's a little rod attached to one of them that comes down into a hole in the floor, and it's permanently attached to the door. So that's something that Rabbi Eliezer would matir, according to the Gemara. And the Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi matir. Rabbi Yossi says this is allowed. It has a knob. So even though it's not permanently attached to the door, since it has a knob, it's like a kli. It could technically be used as a pestle for grinding. It's not muksa, and it does not resemble building, according to Rabbi Yossi. Amr Rabbi Eliezer. So Rabbi Eliezer brings a proof to his position. Maaseh beknesset shebetveria. There was a Beit Knesset in Tveria. Shayonogin beheter. They said it was mutter to close the door with such a bolt, with a glustera. Ad shabar ben Gamliel was a kanim v'asr lahem. But one time Rabbi Gamliel and the other sages, they came to that shul and they said, hey, you can't use such a bolt like this. It looks like building on Shabbos. Can't use that on Shabbos. Use it on the weekday, sure, but not on Shabbat. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yossi says back to Eliezer, Isur Nahaguba. Actually, at that shul in Tveria, they thought it was usur to use on Shabbos. Bar Rabbi Gamliel is kainiv hitir lehen. When Rabbi Gamliel and the other sages came there, apparently on Shabbos, they said, hey, you actually are allowed to use such a bolt on Shabbos, according to Rabbi Yossi. Rather, according to Rabbi Yossi's version of the Maisa in Tveria. Now, there is an interesting shaila here, because usually if people have a minhag to be machmir, you shouldn't go and tell them, hey, don't do that, be makel, give up your minhag. So here it was actually allowed to inform them that their minhag, their nahagu, was incorrect because they thought the halacha was like this. They weren't trying to be machmir. They thought the halacha was really like this, that they couldn't do it. So they said, listen, you could do it. If you want to be machmir like Rabbi Eliezer, you can be machmir, but min adin, you're allowed to do it. So they were basically clarifying what's the din and what's the minhag. Sometimes people get confused and they think the minhag is the din and the din is the minhag. So it's really important to know what's what and who's who. Great. On to Yud Aleph. Neger hanigrar, a bolt that's dragging, meaning there's some sort of cord or rope or chain connecting the bolt to the door. So when you open the door, you're moving the bolt also, so you don't lose the thing. Noelin bo b'mikdash. You could use this to shut your door in the mikdash, in the temple of Oloba Medina, but not out in the countryside, meaning outside the temple. Now, there's an important factor to remember that this is Asr Mishum Shvut. Shvut is rabbinical prohibitions on Shabbat of doing things that look like a malacha. So because this dragging bolt, this bolt kind of looks like a piece of wood, a piece of building material maybe, so it looks like boneh. It looks like the malacha of construction for them to use such a bolt. But in the temple, in the mikdash, we did not Asr things Mishum Shvut. Now there are many reasons given here, because the temple has a different level of sanctity, because the Kohanim, Marzrizim, the priests are very careful with everything going on. They're not going to come to do a malacha deraisa if we allow them to do something that looks similar. In fact, they're involved in malacha deraisa all day. They do shchita on Shabbat. They burn fires on Shabbat for the tzorach of the avoda. So they're very careful to know what's deraita, what's derabanan, and what's going on at all times. The Mishnah continues, hamunach, one that's simply resting on the ground. They have like a piece of metal or a piece of wood that they use as a bolt, and it's just sitting there, konvikan asr. Both in the temple and in outside, it is forbidden to use it to close the door, to bolt the door on Shabbos, because that really looks like construction. You're sticking a piece of wood into the ground or into the door jamb. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, hamunach muter b'mikdash. He says, no, that's not actually asr deraisa, it's asr mishum shvut, so they could do it in the temple, v'nigrar b'medina. And the one that's nigrar, that's tied to the door, they could use outside of the temple. but one that is munach they could not use outside of the temple. That he would still say is aser. Shua tov and be well.